difficult that way.
I'm going to call this meeting of the Salem City Council December 1st to order. If the recorder would please call a roll.
Councillor Bennett.
Here.
Councillor Tessler.
Present.
Councillor Nanke.
Here.
Councillor Clausen.
Here.
Councillor Dickey.
Here.
Councillor Rogers.
Here.
Councillor Bernards.
Here.
Councillor Clem.
Here.
And Mayor Peterson is absent.
All right, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Councillor Nanke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move additions and deletions to the agenda, and one clarification is for a deletion rather than an add as indicated in this.
That's correct. It's being removed from the agenda with this act.
All right.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Council and city manager comments. Councilor Bernards.
No, we're okay, we're okay. It just figures I should reach over for the mic and get some water instead. I know that we have so many of our councilors are going to be leaving this room within the next few weeks, and we'll have a new council coming in to take their place. But there's one person in this room who's been here for many years and has been reporting on us on a, well, every 2-week basis as we meet, and that is Michael Rose of the Statesman Journal. Tonight is Michael's last night of reporting on the to the Statesman Journal on the City Council, and I just wanted to acknowledge his presence and the fact that he's done such a great job all these years. So. Thanks.
Anyone else? Councilor Clem.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Bennett. I just want to take a moment and recognize a great friend of the city we've recently lost. Firefighter Larry Maletta passed away a week ago, and I think it's worthy to note that Larry really gave his life for the city, for his community, both in West Salem, but also for all of Salem. Larry was a firefighter for 32 years. Almost all of those with the city of Salem. And the interesting part was trying to understand in a 32-year period what kind of impact a person has. And asked the firefighters to try to estimate, what does that mean in terms of calls? But it's difficult to, but the estimate is that probably anywhere from 375 to 450 lives were saved. I mean, over 32 years. And that obviously is extended to include medical transports where advanced life support was being applied. And when I think of those kinds of numbers in terms of the difference that one person can make, Larry led a very, very hardworking life, not only as a firefighter. We were trying to figure out, how many people he saved. And one of the comments was if Larry were here at his funeral, Larry would lament on how many he lost. And that's the kind of mindset we have, the caring mindset that we have with our firefighters. Larry also contributed to the Center for Hope and Safety, which is now downtown and helping lives and families immeasurably, but then also the West Salem High School Memory Garden. We lost a hero recently, and I just want to maybe ask that the council indulge me with a moment of silence for Larry, and then we can, Larry, we miss you, but a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
If no other counselors do, I have a couple of things. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Counselor Clem. That was a very wonderful thing to do for someone that we really appreciated as a coworker and a member, an important member of our fire department, so thank you. I wanted to bring a couple of things to your attention. It's time for the fall leaf haul again. So it will be scheduled for Saturday, December 6th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the State Fairgrounds, Wallace Marine Park, and Sprague High School. And we appreciate very much Salem residents being able to bring or make available their leaves and material. We also ask every year that people not blow their leaves into the street because it causes local street flooding, and ask that people bag those or bring material to the fall leaf haul. So thank you. Another thing, as council knows, we received an EPA grant for $200,000 for reuse and revitalization of land. The 3-year program is going to include inventorying brownfield sites, funding Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental site assessments, and funding for site reuse planning. Both public and private owned sites citywide may be eligible for the program funding. We're going to be having an event on Tuesday, December 2nd from 4 to 5 p.m. at Gambaretti's Italian Restaurant downtown, and information will be being mailed out, but just wanted to make the public aware of that. And if you can watch our website or our Facebook account, you'll be receiving more information. We'll also notify people directly if we think they're going to be interested in that. And then we will be opening our new stream and rainfall monitoring website this winter, and more information will be coming out at that as well. And that's an opportunity where people in the community can look at the city's home page on the website, go to the emergency section, and be able to monitor streams that are near you to make sure that we can prevent or prepare for any flooding that we might have this winter. And that's all.
Great, thank you very much. Sure. Yes.
Question on that, does that show Northsanium river levels as well, or no?
Yes, Mr. Fernandez, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, Councilor Peter Fernandez, Public Works Director.
Yes.
It will show those gauges as well.
Excellent. Just so I can pass that along at a meeting next week.
Good.
The website will be up. We'll be doing a presentation to council, I think on the first council meeting in January. We'll provide you some details, but it's ready to go, so we thought we'd go ahead and let it go live, and then we'll give you the details in January.
And one thing I forgot is in front of you, you have our budget in brief, and it's a new publication that our budget office has put out, and we'll be giving this to our budget citizen committee members as well. It has a lot of interesting facts and a summary of how the budget in the city works, so we hope you'll take a look at that. We'll have these available to the public and on our website as well.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. And then we have a couple of presentations. We're celebrating Public Works, Mr. Fernandez.
Actually, Councilor Bennett, we're celebrating tonight the 50th anniversary of the opening of the Willow Lake wastewater treatment plant, and it just happened to coincide just a few minutes later with a presentation from the Energy Trust of Oregon where we did a project, and they are good partners to us, and there's a pretty substantial rebate that's coming our way. So I'm delighted to introduce Greg Irely, who's our plant manager. He's going to give you just a brief walk through history and our accomplishments over the last 50 years out at the plant. It's something people don't think about, which I think is really a good thing, but nevertheless a very important part of our infrastructure and you know, the second most important service that we provide to the community. So with that, Greg, show us the history. Oh, and are you going to introduce your staff as well? I see there's some folks here from Willow Lake. Why don't you introduce them as well?
Yes, we do have another number of staff here. We have Paul Mitchell with Willow Lake. He's our lab manager. We have Tarita Carden, who's our administrative services support and my assistant. And then we have Stephanie Eisner, who is our operations manager.
Great. Thank you for coming this evening.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
There we go. Good evening, Council President Bennett, council members, and city manager. My name is Greg Irely. I am the wastewater division manager at the Willow Lake Water Pollution Control Facility. 50 years ago today, our plant operations logbook reads, shakedown of operations still in progress. Closed diversion gate at the old treatment plant. This plant shut down at 12:30 p.m. Construction of the Willow Lake treatment plant began in 1963 and took nearly 2 years to complete. The 40 million gallon treatment plant was put into service 50 years ago today on December 1st, 1964. However, it was flooded just weeks later on December 24th in the historical flood of '64. To better meet the demands of Salem's growing large food processing industry, in 1976, the plant underwent multiple upgrades to include a state-of-the-art, for the mid-'70s, high-purity oxygen system that was expanded to 105 million gallons a day. In 1988, the plant was upgraded with several key capital improvement projects, a cogeneration facility, diffused air enhancements, and various electrical upgrades to include reduce reliance on energy-intensive processes and to improve our plant effluent quality. In the 1990s through the early 2000s, the plant was heavily loaded by cannery waste discharges. Operating was extremely complex and very challenging. However, Willow Lake continued to produce high-quality effluent, meeting permit requirements. In this era of the plant's history, staff was focused on maximizing treatment capacity and day-to-day operations. And they did a remarkable job through these years meeting regulatory requirements as well as reducing odor emissions. In the mid-2000s, the plant faced new challenges. Required by a federal Clean Water Act consent order, the city was to eliminate sanitary sewer overflows under most circumstances by December 31st, 2009. To meet these regulatory requirements, the city invested nearly $180 million to expand Willow Lake's hydraulic capacity. In simple English, we needed to treat more water. Willow Lake was expanded yet again to 155 million gallons, as well as the River Road Wet Weather Treatment Facility was constructed to treat an additional 50 million gallons per day and only operates during extended wet weather periods or large storm events from November through May. This facility is located at the site of our original treatment plant that was in service prior to 1964. In recent years, with treatment processes more stable, largely because of reduced plant loadings, plant staff is now better able to focus on value-based decisions and created the CIT, or Continuous Improvement Team, which is pictured right here. We created a hauled waste program, an energy management team. These initiatives have resulted in increased operating efficiency, reduced energy consumption, and a modest increase in revenue through our hauled waste program. Just recently, our plant shared its experiences with other agencies throughout Oregon, Washington, and Idaho by presenting 5 technical presentations at the Pacific Northwest Clean Water Association annual conference. Looking ahead, the city has made significant investments in our planning and treatment infrastructure for the future, and there will be many challenges to come. It's been 50 years of largely anonymous contributions and service by our dedicated staff. Cities are forever, and we will be here continuing to serve the city, protecting our environment and future generations. We believe we make the world a better place to live, 1 gallon at a time. Now, to turn it to you, Peter, and you have a short presentation by the Energy Trust.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to introduce J.P. Botmal from the Energy Trust of Oregon, who has a little something to share with us.
Hi, how you doing? My name is J.P. Botmal. I'm with, like I said, Energy Trust of Oregon. I'm the Senior Industrial Program Manager and oversee what we call our custom program. And I'm also a resident of the city of Salem, so I made sure that I was on the list to make this presentation. People kind of fight over it, and you'll see why in a minute. Just real fast, Energy Trust of Oregon is an independent nonprofit organization. We're dedicated to helping the utility customers benefit from saving energy and generating renewable energy. Our services and cash incentives and solutions have helped participating customers of Portland General Electric, Pacific Power, Northwest Natural, and Cascade Natural Gas save over $1 billion on their energy bill. We've been in existence 1/5 of the time of you. We've been around for about 10 years now, and we're really proud of the work we do. But more importantly, it's projects like this. The City of Salem, I can't underscore enough in the short time I'm up here, the leadership this facility has shown on the industrial side. As much as they're quietly operating 1 gallon at a time, as Greg said, this project was started back in 2012, and slowly and methodically they worked through to get this done. It's a big project. It's going to save over 1.6, almost 1.7 million kilowatt hours a year, and it's going to save $99,000 a year on your energy bills. Well, I'll just get right to it. It's also going to generate a check for $480,000. So it's a great project. What we do is we go out and we buy energy efficiency and generate renewable power because it's cheaper than putting in a baseload power plant, and it's more sustainable than getting coal from somewhere else. And every time someone does projects like this, it makes Oregon and the Pacific Northwest a better place. And I just want to call out a few people. There's Jim Russell, who helped with this project immensely. I don't think he's here tonight. But Greg, Stephanie, and Bob Whitney. And really, I know Greg and Stephanie the most. I've interacted with them the most. I can't begin to sing the praises of their leadership enough. In the past 4 years, what they've done is this facility alone is avoiding over 2.5 million kilowatt hours a year. That's almost $150,000 a year in energy costs are being avoided. And they've also got you almost over $500,000 worth of incentives. So in just the past 4.5 years. But what they've also changed is the culture there. From what I gather, they're very energy conscious, and the continuous improvement team is not, you can put in new equipment, but when you have people just turn off the lights and do the right thing and just turn off a pump that's not needed, it saves a lot more energy, is a lot more cost effective, and they've been leading the charge. And as much as they operate quietly, the City of Salem is right up there with the City of Gresham, Clean Water Services, and City of Portland for leadership. Gresham's have a net zero facility, and Clean Water Services doing some amazing things. And other facilities that we talk to through Aqua, where the City of Salem has been a leader, they talk about what the City of Salem has done with an older facility and the investments they make to keep doing things right. So you have some great leaders that are doing their work, and I just want to make sure we're happy to give this check, but we're also happy what it's doing for the public benefit, public good. So this is Lisa Green, one of the engineers who actually does the work. She can actually do the math, unlike me. I'm just a program manager. And she also has the check, which makes it even more important. So this, right, present the check.
Council President will accept it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It was made out. It was made out to the mayor, so we had to change it at the last minute.
Give it to the manager.
There we go.
And in case you didn't hear the amount, it's $487,447 in a rebate for the great energy savings that we've accomplished at the plant. So thank you to the Energy Trust and also to our wonderful staff.
Well, thank you very much. And Mr. Ryerly, that was really interesting. Thank you. It may be very quiet out there, but the 1 gallon at a time is greatly appreciated by all of us. So thank you very much. And your staff as well for being here this evening. And for the check. Don't want to forget the check. That is so much nicer than the box of light bulbs and shower heads I just got.
I made a special check for Peter, so you have to ask him. In honor of.
That's great. Thank you. Well, we'll move on to public comment. This is the opportunity to comment on issues on the City Council agenda. Just to remind you, you will have 3 minutes. At 1 minute, an orange light will show up to give you the 1 minute warning. When the red light comes on, I'd ask you to just stop so I don't have to ask you. And please give us your name and either address or ward. Lee Lynch.
Yeah, my name is Lee Lynch. I'm with Willamette Valley Yellow Cab, and my address is 2046 Brayman Street in Salem, Oregon. I wanted to address the issue that is taking place today on Section 3.3B. Everybody, it's transportation for hire, but everybody knows it's regarding Uber. But I want to tell you just a minute about yellow cab. Everybody see yellow cabs in town?
Oh, yeah.
Well, yellow cabs are in Salem all over the place. We even go to Portland once we get a fare there. However, most of you might think that yellow cab is just a cab company that's transporting people. Well, we do transport people. We transport all kinds of people. We get people off the street that you don't want on the street. But we transport a lot of senior citizens. We transport church groups. We make lab deliveries for Salem Hospital and other medical organizations. We transport patients, all of that. We make deliveries. We make deliveries for gasoline. We make deliveries for groceries. So, Willamette Valley Yellow Cab is not just a taxi service. It's a real important part of this community. We have 44 drivers. You wouldn't believe how many calls we get a month. We get over 7,000 calls a month. So, whenever you see yellow cab out there, just realize that we're just not a taxi cab company. We're a part of this community, and we're proud to be a part of it. I wanted to address just one issue. I am totally, entirely in favor of the city looking at some of the regulations that are going to be taking place in the next couple of months. You've got new business models coming in town. So, when the new business model comes in town, just remember that Willamette Valley Yellow Cab is behind this city 1,000% in trying to help it deal with this. Anytime anybody in the city wants a question about the cab company business, give us a call. More than happy to help you out. So I just wanted to extend our hand to the city and just to let you know that we're not against anything the city, we're not against Uber, we're not against anybody. We just want to help our city be safe. So that's about all I have to say.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right.
Councilor Clem, did you have any questions?
I did. Thank you, Councilor Bennett. Mr. Lynch, thank you for coming down and for being a part of Salem. With our current city rules on cab delivery for hire or
Right.
vehicle for hire, are the rules working? Is the public safe? Are they getting transported 24/7? Do we need to change the rules, or are they working?
I think the rules are working when they are enforced, but I do know this. I know that because of the situation in Salem, the city doesn't have the resources to stop and enforce every single rule.
Right.
You know, we got to be reasonable.
Right.
So I think they do a great job down at the city in enforcing the rules because they're in constant contact with us anyway. In fact,
Right.
the city, they do contact us. But as far as the rules being enforced, it's a never-ending battle.
Okay.
I mean, how are you going to enforce it? We have some suggestions. We would like to put some teeth in the rules because as it is right now, there's no provisions, really hardcore provisions that could stop anybody from just slapping a taxi cab, sign on top of your car and driving around town picking up fares.
Well, our main concern is public safety, and I know we've had some
it
pretty
is-
stringent rules on your drivers and on your operations, so the rules are working.
The rules are working.
Okay.
We just want to put
So
more.
we don't need to change them,
No.
just enforce them.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Al Wakefield.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to come up here and speak. My name is Al Wakefield. I am the owner of Willamette Valley Yellow Cab. And Lee gave you a brief introduction to what we did and when we talk about the rules, the enforcement. What we're talking about is, as we consider changes, we're not against change. We want to move. We have our own app. We do the same type of service as everybody else does, and better, much better. And what we want is a fair playing field. We spend over $100,000 a year just with safe and insurances. When you bring these other cab companies in here to run off an app, they don't pay a dime. They do not contribute. We pay over $300,000 a year in taxes, employee taxes and benefits. They pay zero. So what we need to really do is figure out, how can I take and haul that passenger for $5 at 3 a.m. from West Salem to the hospital to visit a relative, when the other people don't even pick up the phone because they won't make enough money? I mean, and so it's the whole thing of, we want a fair playing field, you know, with it. And it's really hard, you know, it's just really hard to get that with people coming in and just using an app and totally violating the laws. They flagrantly run the system here in town and just rattle it in people's face and say, hey, you know, I rode with an illegal guy downtown and he told me he was illegal. Well, if you ride with a drunk and he's drunk, they get their car towed. And that's what I want, enforcement with these other cab companies. And it's all in the name of safety and fair play. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming down and sharing. I'm curious to know if there's anything in our rules that let me back up. Is there any current technology or something that you could be using that are prohibited in our rules that would make your delivery of service better and more competitive? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Well, yeah, you kind of got me on the spot there. It's nothing that really I'm unaware of per se. It's just that we just, if you have a business license come into town, they have to be licensed the same way. You know, we have 44 drivers currently spend $80 a year minimum with the city to get their license, plus their background checks, which is a pretty good chunk of change. And we'd like to see everybody else have to go through it. You know, put a sign on your car so people know that you are a delivery or a pickup or a taxi service. Some of the medical transport, non-emergency medical transport, isn't regulated to the point that I'd like to see it. But one thing I am proud of saying is that no matter on the dollars and cents, that we're getting a lot of seniors out and getting them home because we can transport them with our transportation system so they can get home for Thanksgiving dinner, go see the grandkids play baseball and events like that. So we work with the city. We want to be the city's partner. We talked to Mr. Kennedy and the rest of them and invited them to come down to our facility, look, and any questions that we can have, because we're city partners. We're not going to go away, hopefully.
Great.
Okay.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Jane Posner?
Good evening. My name is Jane Posner. I live at 1881 Cousteau Loop in Pringle Creek Community. I'd like to speak about the Fairview addition that is just a planning commission has passed on to you for information. I would like, as an email that was circulated said, this is the final opportunity for the council to initiate review or call up the decision for a public hearing. I believe there is a shortcoming in the refinement plan. The issue is the fir grove that is on the north boundary of the property. The Fairview Master Plan specifically lists this fir grove as a resource to be saved and maintained for green spaces, and that's on page 19 of the Fairview Master Plan for your reference. That fir grove to be left as green space is not, there is no specific language in the refinement plan that calls for the preservation of that fir grove intact. And I'll refer you to the Fairview Addition plan. On page 32, there is a tree inventory. There is a penciled mark around at the top of the schematic where that fir grove is. Then on page 42, there is a schematic that shows the green space that shows a little bit smaller space there. Then on page one, or on in your electronic copy, the page 138 has a lot overlay that shows the entire fir grove overlaid with lots. There is nothing, these represent changes throughout the course of the refinement plan's editing before being passed by the Planning Commission onto you. The problem is there is no language that specifically calls out that fir grove. I would like the City Council to address that oversight.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Right, thank you. Jessica Kratzberg.
Good evening. I'm Jessica Kreitzberg. I'm with Anderson Shirley Architects at 695 Commercial Street Southeast, Suite 5, Salem, Oregon 97301. And I'm here today for one of the information report items with the Gilbert House and basically our proposal for a new structure on that site. In the past, there was a bubble room that consisted in a historic landmark building at the museum, and there was a water incident which damaged the building, and so the exhibit basically was shut down, and the community would really love for that exhibit to come back to life. And so what we've done is a feasibility study to look in the southwest corner of the property to put a new construction building that could address the water issues and basically be in a safe spot for the museum. And since City Council and the city owns the property, we would like you guys to approve us to move forward with that, so that way we can start fundraising to actually make that dream become a reality. And so if you have any specific questions about that, I would love to answer them.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's always fun being excited about it.
Yeah. Carl Anderson.
No additional comments needed.
Okay, thank you. Josh Park.
Hello, my name is Josh Parker, Coffee in Motion, 2420 Mission Street Southeast. I met with, so we changed the food cart rules a little bit, and it's a lot better, and I really appreciate that, what you guys have done for that. And I was meeting with Brady, Aaron, and Rabi, that name is the hardest, about my seating upstairs in the bus. And the definition 12 years ago was the same, but anyway, it's been a long story with me. You guys, some of you guys heard of me. And the seating issue has been an issue since 12 years ago. And the reason 12 years ago I couldn't have seating is because the 6-month rule, we had to move every 6 months. In order to stay there, I had to not have seating and become a permanent structure. Now, a mobile food unit again. And it occurred to me when talking to these gentlemen about the seating issue is that according to the code now, the new code even, you can't have seating for any mobile food unit, according to the definition. So I'll read the definition for you again, unless you guys have it in front of you. So when I was, all right, mobile food unit means any motor vehicle, trailer, wagon, which is used for the purpose of preparing, processing food, immediate consumption, drive-in, drive-through, curb, or walk-up service. So there's no seating available for mobile food units. I even asked when I was talking to the gentleman today about other food carts that had seating in tents, for instance, and I was told that that's not allowed either. So we might, I'm glad they came to me and we talked about this. My vehicle is a DMV vehicle. It's a bus that is legal to have seating for according to the DMV. There's a couple buses in Salem that do have seating for their mobile food units. It's a grilled cheese company. They have one that's a school bus, one that's a double-decker bus. Throughout the country, there are there's not tons of them out there, but throughout the country, they do have them. According to the health department, I'm legal to have seating as well. There's nothing wrong with that, according to them. So I guess my question is if we could readdress the seating issue for not just me, but all mobile food carts out there that would like to have some kind of seating in the future. So, and right now I have a 15-day order to not have seating anymore. So, started 7 days ago. I know we're kind of in flux a little bit on the code. You guys are still kind of looking at it and seeing how it's going out there. So, my suggestion maybe is have a limited number of seating possibly for the mobile food units. So you don't have 10,000 seats out there. I mean, that's a suggestion maybe. Because that makes sense per food unit. If there's 2 or 3 in the same area, maybe, so. That's my concern tonight about the mobile food. And I appreciate what you guys have done with it, and it's made it a lot easier in general for all of us out there. We all work together at various events, and so.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions? Councilor Dickey.
Thanks, Josh, for coming down. And thanks for sharing your suggestions. I know I'd like to see if there's something we can do to fix that. I just kind of curious. So you're in a 15-day order. Does that mean you have 8 days left, and then you have to shut down your
About
seating?
8 days left. I believe it's 7 or 8 days. I have the
Okay.
exact date on my phone.
Okay. And right now,
I can't have the seating. I can still operate, but it's not the seating.
without the seating. So per the city's rules, I'm trying to remember how enforcement is done. If you have seating, did you met with the city? Do they come out and inspect, or did they somehow see it? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, Aaron and I were going back and forth a little bit about it. They were concerned about the definition, that there was no seating. It didn't say I couldn't have seating, but it didn't say that seating was allowed either. And that's in the. There's nothing about seating at all. It's just walk up, drive through, or curbside, according to the regulation currently, the current code. So I think that's when they were looking at it, trying to, looking at it, the code more to see how we wanted to do it and proceed, that they really read it and were like, oh, wait a second. So that's how their interpretation is from talking to them today. And if that's their interpretation for code enforcement, then that's what it is. And I personally think, obviously, if it's a DMV vehicle, for instance, that allows seating for driving around town, picking people up, dropping them off, if I'm stationary, serving people food, why couldn't they sit upstairs if it's legal? And again, if I want to have seating outside, according to this, it doesn't look like I can. So no food cart could. So that was.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Councilor Nanki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thanks for coming down. We've
Yeah.
had some fun with this one.
Yay!
And
And it's a
so
unique thing.
I apologize for all the angst we've put you through over the years as well. But staff in the staff report today is looking for some guidance on a couple of different things. So I'll be asking for more clarifications, especially if it's DMV rated to have people in it. It would make sense, in my opinion. I enjoyed the email from the gentleman today.
Yeah.
On the grilled cheese buses. So.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's really active in the community. Awesome
We'll
guy.
see where we can go from here. I've never been inside of the bus.
Yeah.
Does it have a stairway on each end, or how is it configured?
On the front, the stairway, you walk in, walk upstairs. There's only like maybe 14 people can sit up there. It's not like a ton of space for people. But there's 4 tables. People sit around, enjoy it. It's different, unique. Add something. I mean, I actually put a lot of money, because of the interpretation 12 years ago, my understanding, and then when it passed, I thought it made sense that 6-month rule was gone. I can reinvest, and it sounded good that night, and put seating upstairs again, and so, and people like it. I mean, it's definitely a unique thing. And Salem, it's on the way into Salem. I redid the landscaping. I have lights on the outside now. It's trying to make it look really nice, and
great.
It's a landmark.
It makes sense. I mean, they complain about people being distracted while driving while they eat, and this would let them eat.
There you go.
And then go back and get in the car.
They can text, I think, if I'm parked. They can text and drive. Or text.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
We'll save questions on these issues for Mr. Gross when we hit it on the information list. Okay, good. All righty. Is there anyone else who wanted to come comment? Mr. Olson.
Hello, my name is Eric Olson. I live at 1520 Gwynn Street in Monmouth. Came here to talk about a couple of issues. First, just a quick comment about your deliberations on Uber. I just think that we should be very open-minded, especially in a city like our own that is not, does not have a lot of public transport. It provides a great alternative. It's a very sustainable type of public transport, and I think that we should be very open to looking at ways to make it a viable solution for transportation needs for those that don't own automobiles and who want to be able to sort of transport themselves, be transported within the city limits. So I would hope the city would be very open to consideration of Uber and how exactly it might be able to improve the livability of the city. I say that partially because I'm hoping to develop a piece of property, which happens to be on the agenda tonight. I understand there was discussion about about our proposal, which was unanimously supported by Planning Commission. Just a quick bit of background. I've worked very hard to sort of not come in and try to bulldoze my way, so to speak, through my sort of notion of what the best kind of development is. I've worked with the Neighborhood Association, Morningside Neighborhood Association, worked closely with Simpson Hills, kept them apprised of our plans, which is immediately to the south of our development. The Sustainable Fairview Associates, the property to the east of where we're developing, and also Pringle Creek Community. They've had quite a bit of concern about the fir grove, and we as well have been tried to be as incredibly responsive as possible to their concerns relative to the preservation of those trees. Just as a little background, James Meyer, who is the architect that sort of spearheaded much of the master plan of Sustainable Fairview and specifically Pringle Creek, had addressed us about preserving certain trees. He had a list of 24 trees which he wanted preserved, and we were able to preserve 22 of the 24 of the fir grove. We made great effort to sort of modify our plan. We added additional open space. We took 3 lots out to provide additional to preserve additional trees. And I guess I would just ask council to be mindful that there's considerable cost and impediments to taking it to bringing it for consideration to council, really for 2 trees that we weren't able to sort of get brought back into, we're able to preserve. So we greatly hope that you're at least mindful of the costs associated with that, and we look very forward to developing a great subdivision here in Salem.
Great.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Any questions? Councilor Tesler.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming down. I'm paging through your plan here, and can you talk to me a little bit about pervious pavement? Are you using pervious pavement?
Yes, we are. There's pervious pavement. We have a number of different sort of progressive, sustainable ways in which we deal with basically infiltration. Infiltration is a big thing. We're big believers in infiltration. We originally had proposed pervious asphalt at the essentially on the downhill side, which is adjacent to Pringle Creek Community. After sort of more discussions with them, they realized that there might be some drawbacks of having pervious asphalt on the downhill side, because essentially what that does is drains down into their subdivision, which we would agree that that's not a particularly good idea. So we have sort of adjusted the plan accordingly to make sure that we're not adding additional water load into their system.
Councilor Tesler.
Thank you. I'm also looking at your figure 1, which is illustrative site plan of Fairview Addition West. You identify an oak grove on here. Could you kind of roughly point out where these trees might be in this drawing? I'm looking, are they right?
The trees that are concerned in terms of the growth?
Correct.
That Pringle Creek folks were concerned about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would be on the north side, the northeast side of the subdivision. So, is that?
Yeah, I'm looking at this drawing, they would be up near potential rainwater catch facility.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Are they identified as these green dots in the back?
Yes.
And these are the trees of concern? And you have said that you would keep 22 of the 24?
Yeah,
Is
so
that correct?
essentially we don't really want to come in and just railroad our plan through the city. I mean, that's kind of a big deal to us. So we've tried to work with the neighbors in terms of bringing as much as much of the sort of the concerns of theirs. So James Meyer, the architect, had given me a list of 24 trees which they wanted preserved, and we were able to preserve 22 of the 24 additional trees on top of the trees that we already had preserved.
Okay, and you've met with these folks that were concerned about the trees, and
Yeah,
and you've spoken to them, and
absolutely.
yeah, and
Yeah.
have you, I mean, did you write this in a written commentary to them, or is this just a verbal kind of thing?
No, it's in the master plan. The tree, it's in our tree conservation plan, which is very specific about which trees we are going to keep.
Well, I just was asking you that for more clarification for my own points.
absolutely.
I certainly appreciate your other developments that you've done, and you do have a very interesting vision. So I am curious to see how this plays out on this site. It will be very interesting to see how this unfolds.
Yeah, we're very excited about it. We bring, I think, a pretty successful track record from Edwards Addition in Monmouth, and we really think that it'll be a great success here in Salem, assuming we're able to carry out the project.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Olson.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who wanted to comment on an issue on the agenda tonight? All righty. Councilor Nanki, the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move the consent calendar with the following poll, 3.3B by Councilor Dickey.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. Now come to our public hearings. As was mentioned earlier, the first public hearing, 4A, the application's been withdrawn, so we'll move on to 4B. I'm going to open the public hearing. The city recorder will read the title, please.
Ordinance Bill 2614 relating to goats for clearing vegetation, amending Salem Revised Code, Section 400.120.
Here we go. So we'll have our staff report.
Good evening, I'm Brian Colborn, planner with the Community Development Department, and I'll be presenting the staff report for the public hearing on Code Amendment 1408 relating to grazing goats within the city. At this time, I'd like to enter the staff report and its attachments, as well as the additional testimony that's included in your additions packets, all into the case record. In July, Council directed city staff to draft a code amendment to allow grazing goats within the city. Targeted grazing by goats is an increasingly popular method of clearing land in urban areas, which offers benefits over more traditional mechanical and chemical methods of clearing land. For example, goats are particularly useful on sites overgrown by ivy and blackberries, and sites that are too steep to access easily with mechanical means, such as lawnmowers. Essentially, we've taken the approach that grazing goats with this code amendment, the grazing goats are a landscaping tool, just like other tools, mechanical, chemical methods out there. And whenever possible, we have approached this proposal in a manner to make the process as straightforward as possible for property owners to use this tool of goat grazing, but also acknowledging that goats are different than those other methods and do require some additional rules which we have proposed in the ordinance. The proposed amendment removes targeted grazing by goats, specifically from the keeping of livestock use classification. This has the result of allowing targeted grazing by goats in all areas of the city. It would not allow goats permanently on a piece of property. It would have a time limit of no more than 21 days at a time at a single location, either a single property or a single penned area. The goats would not be allowed to return to that location for 30 days, and a maximum of 3 goat grazing treatments per year would be allowed at a single location. We arrived at these requirements, a set of requirements, after interviewing 4 different goat herding companies that specialize in targeted grazing in both rural and urban areas. And we just asked them a series of questions about how long it typically takes to provide this service and that sort of thing. And we arrived at these rules through that interactive process with the herders that actually do this kind of work. In those conversations, we also asked how large the typical area is that's grazed for a goat grazing treatment. And the herders stated that usually it's no smaller than half an acre, and so we came up with these requirements for properties that are 0.5 acre or less in size. There'd be a 21-day grazing limit for the entire property. On properties that are more than half an acre in size, there would be a time limit of 21 days per penned area, and those penned areas would be at least half an acre in size. So that gets at the issue of time limit, but also acknowledging that on larger properties, the practice is to pen off areas. And the way that those goat herders pen those areas is typically with electric fences. Goats respond quite well. In our research, we found out that goats respond quite well to electric fences. They're temporary electric fences. They're not permanent. City code does allow electric fences for this purpose for livestock and such as goats. There is a requirement, however, that the fences be posted with warning signs. There's also a requirement in city code that native vegetation in riparian areas is protected. And so it would be the responsibility of the property owners and the goat herders to protect that native vegetation that's along riparian corridors, just like that's a requirement today for any other kind of vegetation clearing activities. We also considered what kind of nuisances that goat grazing could cause in an urban area. And we've got Brady Rogers, the administrator for the Compliance Services Division, here this evening to answer any questions that you may have about possible nuisances. We did also review other comparable cities throughout the Willamette Valley to see what other cities allow and don't allow. And we found that several cities do allow goat grazing, this kind of targeted grazing: Portland, Wilsonville, Lake Oswego, and Corvallis. They all have slightly different requirements and codes that address this. In contacting and talking with the staff at these other jurisdictions, we learned that targeted grazing is often just one method used in combination with other more traditional methods like applying a pesticide or coming back in with a lawnmower. It's also sometimes multiple treatments to really take care of a problem on a property. And we also found out from these other jurisdictions that the overall cost of using targeted grazing is comparable to other methods. Didn't seem to be that much cheaper. It did depend a lot on the particular site, though, and the specific circumstances and situation on that site, and how much vegetation there was, and other factors. We received several letters in support for the proposal that are listed here. Among those was the support of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Mark Bechtel with Parks and Transportation is here to answer questions about how Public Works plans to use goats on city properties and parks if this ordinance is passed. We also received 2 letters in opposition to the proposal. One of those letters is from Green Acres Farm Sanctuary, and I'd just like to spend a moment to address some of the concerns that were raised by Green Acres. Green Acres did submit a letter listing 4 main concerns. The first concern that they had was concern over the potential for goats to be kept on smaller residential lots. The proposed language in the ordinance would allow goats citywide, as I said. And so, you know, we did consider the possible issues that were raised by Green Acres. However, you know, one thing we did was we asked a couple goat herders, how much would you charge to basically, you know, do a goat grazing treatment on a small residential lot, and is that common? And the 2 quotes we got, one was between $250 and $300. The other one was about $1,000, and they said that they do it, but you know, our recommendation is that allowing this on small residential properties is probably going to be okay, because it doesn't seem cost effective to essentially get a one-time mowing of your lawn for that much money on a residential property. You know, there also may be properties out there, probably uncommon, but other ones that are small residential lots that are steep, where goat grazing may be an appropriate treatment for that property. And so closing that option off to folks didn't seem to be the right solution either. Another concern that was raised by Green Acres was the concern about fencing and requirements, not having a requirement specifically for types of fencing or shelters for safe care for the goats. And you know, we did look at that as well. We anticipate that the herders hired by the property owners that will be doing this goat grazing will know how to take care of their goats, and so in most cases that will be something that will be done by the herders. In situations where property owners don't use a goat herding company, we do plan to provide a resource guide, which is just a fact sheet that we have on different subjects that's available online and will be available in our permit center, with tips on safe care and shelter for goats available for property owners. And then the third item that was raised by Green Acres was a concern that we weren't requiring a professional goat herder to actually do the goat grazing treatment. And you know, we did look at that as well, and one of the issues that we ran up against was we didn't find a uniform certification for this industry, for targeted grazing goat herders. And so writing a requirement for a certain required qualification or status didn't seem to be something that we could easily accomplish. We also are not recommending that these goat grazing operations be done by or required to be done by a goat herder company, because the time limit essentially means that it'd be very difficult, I think, for someone to practically, you know, acquire a goat for such a short period of time. It seems more likely that they would rent a goat for the 21-day time period that we're proposing. So then finally, the other concern that was raised was licensing or permitting, and whether or not we should have a licensing requirement. We're not proposing a licensing or permitting requirement for goats. You know, a licensing program or permit process is not something that we're recommending, because the approach we've taken with this whole proposal is to allow this as an option that would be something that a property owner could take as one of the tools that's an option for them. So if they want to choose this more green alternative option, that they don't have to necessarily go through a lengthy licensing or permitting process every time they want to do that. And again, the 21-day time limit just didn't seem to be an efficient use of staff resources or an efficient way to run a program for citizens to have to go through a licensing or permitting process every time they wanted to do a 21-day goat grazing treatment. So we built some requirements, such as the time limits, into the proposal that I mentioned, and we believe that those adequately safeguard against the concerns raised by Green Acres. We will also monitor the implementation of the ordinance for grazing goats over time to see if there are any additional standards that may be necessary or needed in the future. And so with that concludes my presentation. Staff's recommendation is to advance the goat grazing ordinance to second reading for enactment.
Thank you very much. We'll have questions, I'm sure, after we hear from the public. Carrie Fox.
Hi, good evening, Council. Thank you for having me speak. My name is Carrie Fox. I live at 270 24th Street, Northeast in Salem. I also work for Pringle Creek Community in Southeast Salem, and as an employee of Pringle Creek Community, I am very interested in this proposed amendment since it will add, quote, an environmentally sensitive alternative to chemical herbicides and mechanical methods of clearing land. At Pringle Creek Community, we adhere to guiding principles that integrate green building, energy efficiency, and respect for the natural environment. We work to establish and maintain our property and community to benefit residents today and into the future. We therefore do not use herbicides to combat invasive weeds, preferring to keep chemicals out of our land and water. Control of noxious weeds is required by Marion County Soil and Water District. Since control of weeds is required, it makes sense to allow alternative organic methods to landowners to get rid of the invasive noxious weeds on their property. Adding the use of goats to selectively graze and eliminate invasive and noxious weeds is welcomed. At Pringle Creek Community, we have invasive weeds on our property, namely Japanese knotweed, Himalayan blackberry, and English ivy. Some areas where these plants grow are quite steep. Over the years, we've tried a variety of non-toxic methods of weed control. This year actually, we hired a work crew through the Oregon Department of Corrections to cut knotweed by hand. And we've wanted to use goats to help control and eliminate weeds, so we embraced the opportunity to include goats in our weed control arsenal. So we support the staff's recommendation to allow selective grazing of goats for control of invasive weeds.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
And this wasn't in the record. I brought some copies. I don't know
If you give them to the recorder, it'd be... Thank you. Rachel McCollum.
Good evening, Council, and thank you for letting me speak. My name is Rachel McCollum. I'm a co-owner of Yoder Goat Rentals. We are at 33010 Southcroft Road in Molalla, and we have been very honored to serve as a resource to some of the questions that Mr. Colburn has been asking. And we're just here in support of using goats for targeted grazing. Goats, of course, are cool, if you want to ask me. I just think they're the most awesome creatures there ever were. We know our goats by name. We have over 100 goats, but we know them by name. And when was the last time you hugged your lawnmower? So we're just very, very pleased that the city of Salem is considering this, and we'd like to support this. I'm basically here to answer questions from a goat herder's perspective. I don't know if I look like a goat herder to you, but I also respond very well to electric fences. And our goats are well trained for that. We have them on our own ranch where we house our goats during the winter months. I think from a goat herder's perspective, in talking to a city, I would like to express how we view success as a goat herder when we deal with cities. And we have done parks for West Lynn, for Wilsonville, and for Fairview. in this area. We've also done work for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and we define our success in 3 ways when we work with civic organizations. One is that the agency that hires us is wowed and amazed by what the goats have done, because it's just awesome how they take a piece of property that you cannot see, that is sometimes considered dangerous to walk even in pathways in because you can't see what is around you, and how they work through that as a first line of defense in creating safety for your pedestrians in pathways. So first sign of success is if the agency that hires us is just amazed at what our goats have done. Second is when the citizens involved, especially in a park, are so appreciative of what they've done that they actually send emails to the Parks Board saying what a great job our goats have done and how pleased they are that the goats have come. And then the third one is when we see our goats' bellies nice and fat and they're fully fed, and we just really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I have some questions for you.
Yes.
Councilor Rogers.
Thank you for giving your testimony. I have 2 questions. One is, do you ever stake the goat in small properties, like instead of putting up fences?
No, we do not.
You stake everything?
If someone calls us and lets us know, because we rent to private as well as civic organizations, that they're going to be staking goats, we recommend that they seek other sources.
Okay, and then help me understand. I've cut a few English ivies before, and it seems like in 2 years it comes back again. And do goats, do they like the invasive weeds like the ivy and the knotweed more than they do grass, or do they clear the grass and everything?
It's not like your typical billy goat scenarios that you see in the cartoons. They don't eat everything. They don't eat tin cans. I just have one goat that likes plastic bags. But goats are, when you asked about the staking issue, we do not stake our goats for several reasons, one of which that goats are browsers. They eat a little bit here and a little bit there so that they get good nutrition by eating a variety of foods. So yes, they eat the grasses, yes, they eat the weeds, yes, they eat the ivy. They love the blackberries, which is hard to understand. And they do this by eating a little bit here and a little bit there so that they protect their systems.
Thank you.
Councilor Nanki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming down. A couple of questions, and it sounded kind of like that one might have answered, but do they still need some kind of a supplement? Like, do they need some goat chow, or is basically your yard give everything they need?
It depends on the time of the season. When we put our goats out as a herd, we do provide mineral supplements for them on a free choose basis so that they can go up and eat it at any time. That helps keep their nutrition going well. During the summer months when there is rich material out there for them to eat, they do not necessarily need supplemental food at that time. When it starts getting colder, the plants start drawing the nutrition down into the root system, then we supplement their food with both grain and hay.
Excellent. And then
Tons
one other,
of hay.
if I may,
Yes.
the shelter. Do you have pop-up things if they're going to be
do.
staying in one space for a long time, or how's that work?
Again, it depends on the time of the year. During June, July, and August, we do not have nearly as much rain as we do during September, October, and November. And so during the rainy seasons, when it is both cold and wet, cold and wet, we do provide shelter. It's a portable carport that can go up if we have, sometimes we put out like 100 goats at a time, so it requires quite a bit of shelter for them. And it's, goes up, you just pop it up in a little bit and stake it down so they can't knock it over or chew on it, and then take it down when it's time. If we're doing private properties and we need smaller shelters, we have Rubbermaid houses. And again, you just put them together and put them up, or they can also be covered with tarp.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilor Bernards.
I just wanted to come back to the English ivy. I live off of South River Road, where we have these tremendous inclined areas that are covered with English ivy at this point, to the point that a lot of the trees are falling onto the road and on a periodic basis because there's so much ivy. I just wanted to come back and ask, so how well does the goat clear English ivy itself, that one particular item?
They eat the leaves off of the English ivy, and they will eat some of the vines of it, but we don't allow them to eat it all completely because it causes mechanical problems inside of their stomachs. But what they do is they set it back. They they deprive the plant of the nutrition by doing that, and that's why it also takes repetitive treatments. We don't want people to think that you can put a goat in there to eat blackberries or English ivy and one time is going to do it. The city parks bring us back so that we can have repetitive times at that and just knock it down. With blackberries especially, it is often a first line of defense where it allows people to go in and actually have access to further methods of reducing the blackberries on their property.
Thank you.
Councilor Chesler.
So I just wanted to kind of make a couple of comments, is that, you know, this is not a, and see if you'll agree with me, but I used to have goats too, and I loved my goats too. And they are really cool in their characters, and I totally agree with you. They are one of the few living creatures that love poison oak. And, you know, anything that loves poison oak is a good thing. And they would eat it like candy. Right. I just think that, you know, when you look at a piece of property, you don't just take a trailer full of goats and open up the back and dump the goats onto the piece of property. Right. I mean, there's something called an animal unit that I'm sure that you look at, and you think about how many goats are going to go on this property and what kind of feed there is, and you carefully think about how, you know, how long they're going to be there. Mm-hmm. Often a grazer is there. I've been told some grazers hang out all the time. A lot of them have dogs too. Right. They provide water always for the goats.
Exactly.
They scope the site out. They, in riparian areas, I've seen grazers basically accompany the herd and make sure that those plants are protected. There's always an advanced scout of the site with the grazer. All those plants are flagged, identified, you know, those types of things. And I'm thinking these are the types, you know, just working with other grazers, these are probably the things that you would do. I mean, there's thought and planning in these activities. It's not just trailer full of goats and boom, and then disappear and come pick them up in 6 months. So, no. Yeah. And I just wanted to, you know, because there have been some people that are not familiar with these type of activities and management styles, and just kind of wanted to, you know, reiterate with you and them that there is a great deal of planning that goes into this.
We usually have multiple meetings with the Parks Department when we go, especially into a new park that we haven't been into before. We will scout out the property. We look for not only how long they're going to be there, but we look at what they're going to be eating, because there are some plants that are not good for goats, and we want to make sure that there are no poisonous plants that are going to cause them harm in there. We also want to make sure that we can put up our fences adequately, and so we work with the Parks Departments in creating a safe space for those fences that you saw up there on the pictures, so that the electrical current flows freely. And sometimes that can take a week's worth of preparation in getting the appropriate trails or paths made for those fences to go up.
And just one more follow-up comment. I also remember that you do have to trim their hooves. And you do have to take care of them. You have to look at them and inspect their feet and, you know, look at their horns and everything else, and, you know, make sure they're okay. So I'm sure that, you know, this is also something that you do with your goats, and you make sure that physically they're okay to go out, and if there's a problem, you take care of it.
Exactly.
I used to have a farrier trim the goat's hooves and the horse too, so, you know, there is some care that goes into having a goat.
In fact, that's one thing that we tell people when they ask, why shouldn't I just buy my own goats? First of all, what are you going to do with them at the end of the time when you no longer need them? Second of all, is that goats do take a great deal of care. It is that we're trimming 3 days a week now on our goats now that we have them all home for the time being. And it does take a lot of work to keep their hooves satisfactory. And then also goats take a lot of immunizations. They get diseases just like human kids do. And so we immunize our goats to make sure that they're healthy. And I noticed you mentioned about staying on property. When we go out to do public parks, typically we will stay on site 24 hours a day, although take breaks when those breaks are appropriate. We do bring a guard dog. Our guard dog was in one of the pictures that's up here. We're really excited because we're going to go pick up 2 new puppies tomorrow. Great Pyrenees. They'll be 150 pounds apiece. So we do take guard dogs with us because many city properties do have coyotes, and we want to make sure that our goats are well protected.
Thank you. Councilor Nanki.
Thank you. And I apologize, as you started out, I got distracted and didn't get the name of your business or organization.
Yoder Goat Rentals. because we are located in Yoder, Oregon, which isn't really a city, but it's a nice little community outside of Malala.
And then thank you for not staking them, because I think the last time I saw a staked goat was in Jurassic Park, and we know how that is.
It's just not safe for them. As far as their nutrition, it's not safe for them, but also it means that they are tied down prey, and they have no way of protecting themselves against predators, so we don't allow it.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Brianna Murphy.
My name's Brianna Murphy. I actually live at 24980 Southwest Middleton Road in Sherwood, Oregon, 97140. And I'm actually here because I own a goat rental company too called Goat Power, and I've been working with Brian for the last little bit of time, kind of helping him come up with kind of how to word some of this stuff and clarify some things. And obviously the Yoder family is very good at what they do, so they've covered a lot of it. And so I'm just kind of up here, I guess, coming in second, giving some support. And I do like to see the fact that the city of Salem is starting to consider this, because it's not a new way of doing things. I actually think it's kind of more of a common sense revolution where people and communities have been managing their properties for a really long time using livestock. And I think to allow that within the city limits, because there are so many of these little awkward areas that you can't build, or you have a ravine, or you have a creek or something like that. I think it's just a good thing to reintroduce livestock to help manage those properties. The only thing I did see that was a little concerning to me, and I know that you guys have to take into account caring for those riparian zones along creeks and stuff, but I do wonder, what is my responsibility as somebody who's providing this service if you have these areas where maybe there is a single native plant or a single tree or something like that in these areas that are significantly overgrown. I just kind of wonder, sometimes it is not feasible to protect those plants in a realistic sense. Sometimes what you're looking at is a single native plant surrounded by 15-foot tall blackberries. So I think a small amount of wiggle room on something like that would be beneficial, not only to the property owners who are looking to reestablish native plants, but also for the people who are providing it, because this already is a lot of hard work. And if I had to fight my way through 15-foot tall blackberries to save one tree in amongst acres of brush, that's a lot of work. So, just support for this, and it's nice to finally get to see the Yoder family, since we've been in business for a few years and they've been in business a lot longer than us. So thank you very much, and looking forward to working with you guys.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Oh yeah, any questions? She kind of
No?
covered everything.
Okay.
She did.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on this issue? All righty. Councilor Tessler. Oops. It's more questions of staff. Where's Brian? Did they tell you about this in graduate school planning?
Yeah, one-on-one.
Just have visions of you planning cities and talking goats.
Not so much.
Any questions for Brian? Yes, Councilor Bernardes.
So coming back to riparian areas, if you don't want them to graze right along the stream, I presume there's a setback. Is there a specific setback distance?
Yeah, the native vegetation is protected within 50 feet of the top of bank of either side of the creek. So you could remove non-native vegetation within that 50-foot riparian corridor, but native, if there's any question there between native or non-native vegetation, that would be where it's the responsibility of the property owner. And I suppose if there's a situation, just like there is today with someone mowing with a lawnmower, and there's some question there, they would have to make that call whether they really want to move into that 50-foot protection zone.
And this also led me to think about fecal matter entering the water system. There's going to be runoff no matter what, but...
We've talked to our stormwater quality folks in Public Works, and they actually plan to do a test of one of the sites where a private property has already approached the city and expressed interest in using goats. And so we plan to do that test for contamination in the water as sort of a test within that first year, and if that is an issue, or if there are any other issues that we see over time, then, like I said in the presentation, we'll take a closer look at that and see if there are other regulations we need to.
I like this one-year review. Take a look at this down the road. The other thing I had questions on, fecal matter might leave the area. Also, what would leave the area, and that would be noise. Is there anything that's been addressed in reference to that?
Well, our noise ordinance does have some requirements for decibel levels during the day and during the night. I don't have information about specifically where a goat would fit into that existing decibel requirement. Our code enforcement administrator, Brady Rogers, is here, and he knows a lot more about our noise ordinance. He may be able to speak to that, or he may not.
Okay, those are my questions.
You want to know more about the noise that goats make?
It's another one of those pollution things. That's all I'm asking.
Brady, why don't you share with us the sound a goat makes at night?
He makes that noise. Good evening, City Councilors. My name is Brady Rogers. I'm the Administrator of the Neighborhood Enhancement Division. I would assume, with my knowledge of the noise ordinance, it would be considered akin to a barking dog, and probably just a response by police day or night. It would be, if it continued for a period of 15 minutes or greater like a barking dog, it could be considered a noise disturbance.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right, I'll close this public hearing. Councilor Tesler.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and make staff recommendation, which is to advance ordinance bill number 26-14 to a second reading for enactment in order to amend the Salem Revised Code, Chapter 400, use classifications to allow goats for targeted grazing.
Second by Councilor Nanke.
Thanks.
Any discussion? Councilor Tesler.
Well, if you're going to leave a legacy, I guess you should leave goats. This is a good thing for the environment, and it's a good thing for the city. And there's a lot of other cities that use goats. And there's a lot of other jurisdictions. Professionally, in my other career, we've used goats quite a bit with a lot of success in a lot of situations. And the thing that goats really excel at is they excel in getting in very hard to get places. They love the steep stuff. They like rocks. They like to get down into, areas. Even, I know we're flinching at the riparian area, but when you look at a typical place in Salem that's 15-foot high blackberries and not much underneath, you gotta start somewhere. And what these guys do is they will strip off all the leaves. Sometimes they'll eat the stalks. What mine would do is they would strip off all the leaves, and then I would inject crossbow into the stalks with a hypodermic syringe, and that would kill it. And I successfully cleared 8 acres of blackberries on my old property in a summer with goats. And they didn't come back. And I also had a donkey too, and the donkey did like to eat the stalks. I'm not proposing we allow donkeys, but I just, goats are a very good, viable alternative to pesticides and herbicides, and we really have some concerns about using these chemicals in public areas where people are exposed to them. And I heard some conversation about fecal matter. Goats do a funny thing, at least mine do. They're like llamas. They kind of all do their business in one place, which is kind of an odd goat thing. They'll actually walk up to the place and do their business. I don't know why they do that, but they do. They're just not, it's not big like cow. It's small. And, most of the time they're moving and grazing, so they're dispersing. And they're not standing in the water so much. They're not the biggest fans of water, so they don't like to stand in water and hang out. It's going to be a great tool. and I look forward to seeing it. And, you know, people are really drawn to these goat operations. I mean, they become quite the public spectacle. And people take their kids there and go look at them and enjoy them. And, you know, I think when we get the pedestrian bridge in, maybe we can use them out on the island, or maybe we can use them now. And people can go out there and check them out, because they're pretty cool to see. And they don't really make a lot of noise unless they're hungry or they're mad because you just rode away on their horse friend and they want to come too. Or they're pretty, you know, sometimes you bell the lead goat and the bell will ring, but, you know, they're pretty quiet for the most part. They don't make a lot of noise. So I don't know if they're going to be a huge noise pollution problem, but I could be wrong. So anyway, looking forward to it.
Great, thank you very much. Any other comments? Councilor Bernard.
I don't think this needs to be part of a motion or anything, but I would like to get a staff report back on this soon, within a year or on a year annual basis, at least for the first year. You know, we realized that we went through chickens were the hot item, and now we still have the same regulations. We don't have the licensing program because it was costing us more money to implement. I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing in the long term, that we haven't missed up on some thing that we haven't heard about tonight.
I think you've been heard. Okay, anyone else? Councilor Nate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a real quick one. It's like, it's another opportunity and option that people seem to want, and why would we not oblige that? I'm happy to see we're not doing permitting and licensing, which I think would get us right back to where we ended up with the chicken piece as well. So I'm happy to see how it all plays out. I think it'll be 100% silent, just like chickens were.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. 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 All opposed? Motion passes. And our next public hearing, if the recorder would please read the issue, topic.
Ordinance Bill number 27-14 relating to creating a new chapter of the Salem Revised Code, Chapter 45, smoking, and declaring an effective date.
Thank you. Mark, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Council President and Councilors. My name is Mark Bechtel. I'm the Parks and Transportation Services Manager for Salem Public Works. And the issue we bring before you tonight for public hearing is proposed ordinance bill number 27-14, which creates a new chapter in the Salem Revised Code, Chapter 45, and would allow the city to prohibit smoking on sidewalks and landscape strips within the public street right-of-way adjacent to properties where smoking is prohibited upon the request of the adjacent property owner. The purpose and intent of this ordinance would be to protect health and safety and welfare generally, and to reduce to some degree the unwanted and unwelcomed exposure to secondhand smoke, especially for children and those who have respiratory conditions. And then this proposal specifically is to assist those property owners or people who control properties who wish to establish a campus-wide smoking ban or smoke-free policy, and be able to extend that policy to the curb of the street. The initial interest for this ordinance came through Salem Health and Willamette University, and was brought to you as a motion by Mayor Peterson. And then, like I said, it also then create a new chapter in the code, Chapter 45. What it prohibits specifically would be the possession of a lighted pipe, cigar, or cigarette, and the use of electronic cigarettes or similar devices that create a vapor or a mist that simulate cigarette or cigar smoking. It would then prohibit the smoking of tobacco, cannabis, or any other weed or plant capable of being smoked. Okay? And it would do so specifically on the sidewalks and landscape strips within the public street right-of-way, on eligible properties. So which properties are eligible? One, they have to have a campus-wide no smoking policy in place. So this would then create a smoke-free campus both inside and outdoors on their property. They must have a minimum of 100 feet of street frontage with sidewalks. And that property must meet the public services use classification as described in the Salem Revised Code. The person in control of the property would then need to voluntarily request this prohibition from the Public Works Director so that that section of right-of-way could then have the smoking prohibition placed on it. What are the public services use classifications? They include the uses that you see up there on the screen. They are generally related to public uses such as civic and government offices, public safety, corrections, religious assemblies, parks and open spaces, recreational cultural services. I want to make very clear that residential uses, commercial and industrial uses are not eligible for this particular ordinance as an eligible property as proposed. A little bit specifically about how this applies to your average street. What you see here is the right-of-way, and kind of shows up better on this screen here. But this is a typical street with your travel lanes, parking, curb, landscape strip. The landscape strip is the area between the curb and the sidewalk. This red line, which you can see better on this screen than the one forward, is the typical property line. So if this were a property that had at least 100 feet of frontage, had the proper public services use classification, and it had a no smoking policy in place, both indoors and outdoors, then this section of the public right-of-way, the sidewalk and the planting strip, would also have a prohibition for smoking placed on it. Enforcement. There's two types of enforcement with this proposed ordinance. One would be the person in control of the property that has the no smoking policy in place and has this prohibition extending it to the curb would be responsible for enforcing its no smoking policy on its own employees and tenants. The city would not be going and knocking on doors and saying, you need to enforce your smoking policy. However, the city would have the responsibility for the enforcement of the ordinance just generally on the sidewalk and landscape strip. So we don't go into the property owner. That's their responsibility to enforce their no smoking policy. But the city could enforce an instance of smoking on the sidewalk or planting strip if it was observed. The city shall install signs at the applicant's expense to warn that they're entering a no smoking zone, so to speak, on the sidewalk and landscape strip. And violation of the ordinance is an infraction punishable pursuant to SRC 1.070. What you see here is an example of a possible sign that we'd be putting up. And so as you're entering that part of the sidewalk and landscape area, you would see a sign that says something similar to this to let you know that smoking is now prohibited. And it would be at either end of that sidewalk area. So I want to make sure that we enter all the staff report and associated testimony into the record. And staff's recommendation is that you, as a council, advance the ordinance bill number 27-14 to second reading for enactment.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. We'll have questions for you, I'm sure, when this moves forward. Jim Bauer.
Good evening. Jim Bauer from, my address is 1866 Merritt Street South, and I'm here representing Willamette University. President Bennett, council members, staff. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for bringing this bill forward, for this ordinance. I think this is very helpful. When I started working in higher ed 35 years ago, you could smoke anywhere, on campus, in any conference room. smoking was not an issue. When I think about 20 years ago, in colleges and universities, we started banning smoking in all kinds of buildings because of the health effects of it. And the difficulties that come from being in an environment where some people are sensitive to smoke and some people are not. 10 years ago, we continued to restrict it. 5 years ago, around that time, the state started to put some mandated restrictions in. For Willamette University's purposes, we knew that we needed to continue to respond. We've always looked at this as an issue of our community, and that we are looking for ways to project community values in our enforcement of the smoking rules and regulations. In today's day, this secondhand smoke and the issue of smoking is a very important issue for our community. There's a lot of people who express openly their concerns about being exposed to secondhand smoke. The flexibility that we built into many of our policies, which really allow for the rights of non-smokers to have rights over the rights of smokers, are not enough to stop just the general use of smoking that bothers other people. So as a matter of community values, not only for the issue of protecting people who are sensitive, but for people who are clearly saying that as a university or as a community, we don't want to say that it's okay on our campus to allow for smoking that we know is going to be a harm to our community members and to those around them. So we now are moving more and more towards really a no smoking, no smoke, no tobacco use on campus policy. So tonight I just want to support this ordinance and your effort. I want to thank everybody for putting their time into it. It's thoughtfully constructed. It helps an employer like Willamette University do what we know is the right thing to do morally. And it's not an easy decision to restrict people in their right to smoke. This is not for a place that has many, many employees. You're making a values judgment that is difficult to do. You're taking people's personal rights away in order to do something that in a value statement is important to the entire community. And we have done that, and we are in the process of doing that because we know it's important to our community, and we're really appreciative of your support and help. So this is really a thank you, and I hope you'll move this ordinance forward.
Thank
Happy
you.
to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilor Bernard.
Jim, thank you for coming down here tonight. Question in reference to chewing tobacco. Is that included in the list that Willamette prohibits on campus?
We have a community-wide task force that's working on that, and that's going to be in the discussion as well, yeah.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot of movement to say it's tobacco-free. I mean, on the value side, the secondhand smoke is a difficult and equal issue, but from the kind of moral discussion about what we think is important to have in our community, I know that they're going to be looking at chewing tobacco as well.
Well, I understand that chewing tobacco is part of the health statement that you're trying to make at Willamette. It's not just simply your smoke is infringing on my space. It's also about a statement about what it stands for.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Councilor Dickey.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
I'm curious to know if you guys have kind of gotten into how you might enforce this on the public right-of-way.
Yes. You know, this is the first thing you think about. So how do you do this? And really, this is a lot like any community-based guidelines. I mean, first of all, although there's an ordinance here, but first of all, it's our own community thing, and we have lots of rules that not everybody else has that we have to enforce in our own campus community. And we have staff that are trained to do that, and we'll be using the same staff for this kind of thing. In general, our view of this is it's courtesy first. And really, you're talking, most people who might do this are not going out there to see if they can flagrantly violate the rules. A lot of times it's somebody who's just testing or trying, or maybe hadn't really thought about it, or didn't associate that area with our no smoking policy. So I think that's going to be our major way of doing it. If it's one of our own community members, and for instance, if it was a student, we have what we call the student standards of conduct. And if they were belligerent or unwilling to yield to the direction of a staff member, we would take them through our student conduct system, which is an educational process, and I think helping people learn about community values. So does that help? Does that answer for you?
Yeah, one more.
So, excuse me. So, what about a member of the general public that might be in the area.
Yeah, and we have that every day. Probably unbeknownst to you, we have lots of visitors every day who come on campus, and some of them, yeah, they come to eat at Gowdy Commons, a great place to eat if you haven't been there. And they visit our campus for lots of reasons, the library, attend lectures, and some of them violate our smoking policies right now. We have a greater than the regular community policy right now. You can't smoke within 25 feet of not just any door, but any window that's openable. So we have to address people who are not community members in their behaviors currently. And we do that as a courtesy as well, and we would do the same there. We're not looking to call the police. We try not to call the police every time a small thing that can be handled through courtesy can be addressed by our staff. And I don't think it would be any different as we went forward with this. I think most people, when they come on a private property, they understand they're on private property and they're trying to work within the community that they're in. And so we would address it that way.
Councilor Clem.
But my questions were answered. Thank you.
Councilor Rogers.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Bauer, when you went through your policies to eliminate smoking, did you consider and have a discussion around having smoking areas?
We did.
Can you elaborate a little?
From a values standpoint, all that does is just push this problem around on a campus, and it basically says that a group of people are going to be able to go into that area and pull that away from the rest of the community area for the purpose of smoking. And that's not necessarily the way we want to look at it. And then also, as a private institution, taking money that comes from tuition dollars, which is needed to be spent on education, and using that to support something like tobacco use or smoking areas, either to build them or to support them or to maintain them, probably not the best use of our resources.
Councilor Rogers.
Just to follow up from a neighborhood side, the state of Oregon doesn't allow smoking on their property. And when the state hospital was in reconstruction on the north side before they moved to the south side of Center, their no smoking policy moved the people out into the neighborhood streets, just like this policy is probably going to try to eliminate. And so we ended up having cans around the trees on the state property, and that wasn't any better. And so that's kind of been my negative side. And so I'm just wondering now, if we move this out further, they're going to come out and sit on my doorstep, you know,
Right.
and smoke a cigarette. That's.
Well, I hope that doesn't happen.
I'll have you come over and talk to them.
I'll try, but I think it's a good point. But in our particular case, and I know that will be an issue. I think this is about trying to teach everyone about community values. And if people do go across the street, I mean, if it were our students, we would be addressing that behavior with our students. The idea that they would walk off our campus and go in, I guess, create a community problem with a neighbor. We would consider that our jurisdiction for our standards of conduct, because that's not what we're supposed to be doing, and that's not what it means to be a citizen of Willamette. I think in our particular case, Willamette as an employer, Willamette as a location, to our north, no one's going to be walking across the street to the state. I don't think they have a smoking prohibition. And to our south is Salem Health, and I think our Salem Health neighbors are going to be looking at this the same way we are, which is we're making a commitment to smoke-free, and we want to project that consistently for the community so they see and understand that. On our south, we're going to be attentive to that, to our west, we're going to be very attentive to that. And on the east, we've already had discussions with groups like Willamette Heritage Center. I think they're going to be looking at this same kind of thing for their property. Same reasons.
All right. Any further questions? Councilor Nanki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming down, Mr. Bauer.
Thank you.
On your statement to where you didn't think it was fair for the other students to isolate this one area that the non-smokers couldn't use, but yet you want to take away the entire sidewalk area for all citizens of Salem, if they might happen to just be passing by you, there's big chunks of land in there. You're going to have people who, one, don't read signs, And then two, it is very addictive. Nicotine is very addictive, and those people will walk across the street, and if you give them grief, then they will drive around. I mean, smoking is legal.
I know it is. I know it is.
But to take away the public's property for a private business, I mean, I can see it's not attractive when I drive down Mission and see people in scrubs standing on the sidewalk smoking, because there's no place else for them to do that. They will either move further down or hop in to a car then.
I understand the point. And as a former smoker, I know how addictive it is. I think that from our perspective, it's not an easy decision to go smoke-free. I mean, we have, 1,000 employees. We have 1,550 students who live on campus. But I raised the point about what it was like 30 years ago and 20 years ago and 10 years ago. It isn't the same. And I know that, there are going to be times when we're asking ourselves, is this the right thing for our community? But it's being answered over and over again, no, it's not right. And for us, in our situation, and I totally understand your perspective, we're making the decision that it's not going to be right for our community anymore to smoke on our campus, on our property. And when the public right-of-way and the public sidewalks that abut us who have made this decision create a way in which anybody in our group who we have made this very difficult decision to move forward with can stand there and flagrantly kind of thumb their nose at us, saying that they're really not a part of our community by doing that. On one hand, we'd love to be able to say, well, that's okay, but if there's an opportunity for us to say that together this is a representation of this particular area, because the way the ordinance is written, we're declaring ourselves this way, and we're asking the city to join with us to send this message through for this area, not for the whole town. And I don't think if this was at my house, I wouldn't want this in my front driveway necessarily. Although if people were walking onto my private property or right at the edge of it and smoking in my driveway, I'd be asking, is there an ordinance for that too? So that's part of, I understand your point. And it's...
Could you not change your code of conduct just to say you will not be admitted to this school if you're a smoker?
Well, I think that's a challenge of the future about how people are going to deal with this, although there are many places who don't allow alcohol on their campus, and they don't allow tobacco on their campus. And that's not everybody, and that hasn't been Willamette for, almost 175 years. But an example of this would be alcohol regulation on a college campus. We have to regulate on our campus environment. You can't just drink everywhere at Willamette. It's a community of people that has...
You can't drink on the sidewalk at all.
What's that? Yeah, well, see, you're a progressive when it comes to alcohol.
Not to say that people shouldn't be able to, as long as it's plastic cups rather than paper if you're a New Orleans guy.
In some respects, you answer your point just when you look at it that way. But I understand your point. And this is not lightly taken. We have really tried for quite some time to look at this as an issue of, our policy is unique. The rights of non-smokers have precedence over the rights of smokers, and it's a courtesy policy, but it hasn't worked. And it is it affects a lot of people on our campus. That's why we're here. It's changed.
The smokers have been moved from inside to outside to not on my property to across the street, and they still haven't stopped. So we kind of make them the
but smoking continues to go down, whether that's good or bad by your judgment. The use of tobacco, in our case, I can tell you there's a lot less smoking in 2014 than there was in 2002.
I think governments in general would be very disenfranchised if everyone quit smoking, because they reap quite a benefit from it, and very little of it actually goes into smoking cessation. So
Well, we're going to make an emphasis on smoking cessation for the people who still do smoke. And, you know, that's part of our community responsibility as we do this. And, I mean, we have, and many of you know, we have between 120 and 150 students from Japan who come each year. But even that has changed. I mean, those students are not all coming as smokers like they did 10 or 15 years ago. That number continues to diminish as the laws in Japan now have affected the smoking in their own country.
Councilor Klein.
Thank you. Councilor Bennett. Jim, thanks for your testimony. Yeah, it is a hard decision. It sounds like smoking occurring on the sidewalk is still having some negative impact on the campus. First question, if I could ask a question, two questions. Is Willamette University just a better place to breathe now?
For the people who are highly affected by tobacco,
they appreciate it.
They are. I mean, this is an issue where people, there's a sensitivity level here that is very high among a certain group of people, and this is just a difference in how where 5 years ago you might have walked through that smoke and said, "Boy, that's smoky." Yeah. Now it's people coming and saying, "How can you allow me to be?" Sure. Have that happen.
So there's a mindset difference.
There is. There's a different mindset. This is a different.
Second question, does Willamette, and you're bordered by, obviously, arterials and the Salem Hospital, so you're really surrounded by public land almost, where there's no smoking allowed. So essentially, does Willamette maintain or patrol, have any responsibility for those sidewalks? It seems to me city policy is pretty much giving the sidewalks to the adjoining property owners. So we're giving you the air now as well.
Yeah, and the and I think,
maintenance
and the responsibility to make sure that we're doing it right. We've always looked at those sidewalks, and we even look at the parking places essentially on Winter Street as areas that although the city enforces it and tickets those parking places, those are our community. Everyone who's parking there is a Willamette person. So we really look at that as an extension of our campus already, and so do our students and faculty and staff. If they can get a parking place on Winter Street, there aren't that many anymore. Believe me, they're out there grabbing that one first because you know, in our case, we have very few parking places. So we look at those right-of-ways. We take care of them and maintain them right now, the grassy areas that you're describing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilor Bernard.
So recently we talked in this council about not selling animals on public land, and there's some similarities to this where all I have to do is walk 1 inch off the curb into that parking stall, and I'm gathering the parking stall is excluded, but I just walk that 1 inch over, and now I can, in this case, smoke. Is there any place on campus or on the edge of campus that Willamette would allow smoking, so people would at least be in the zone?
Well, if they got into their private car on that public street, they can smoke. If they on a parking lot, they couldn't get into their car and smoke. That would be considered a violation.
So they're pushed off campus, but they're just pushed to the other side of the curb line. I know that there's a crosswalk on Winter Street there. I could see somebody standing in the crosswalk. Hey, I'm flaunting the rule because now I'm...
They could. And, you know, that's what college campuses are all about. There will be somebody who does that. And, you know, that will be a great moment for us. But, yeah, no, I mean, but that is... you know, we're still in a week of protest at our place. You know, there's still, this is a place where people should talk about that kind of stuff and, you know, test those kind of things. Well, that's why we have an educational system to address it.
Just conclude with just saying thank you for your volunteer work in the community, everything that you have done in your representation of Willamette University. Go Bearcats.
Thank you. Go Bearcats. And I've worked a lot of hard jobs in my life, and the one I'm sure I don't want after tonight is the person who puts the 100 goats into the truck to bring them someplace. That could not be a good job. I'm positive of it.
Thank you very much. Leilani Slama.
I'm here to beat this dead horse a little bit more. Good evening, city councilors and Council Chair Bennett. My name's Leilani Islam. I'm representing Salem Health. Address is 890 Oak Street Southeast, and I'm here to speak in favor of passing the ordinance to restrict smoking on city-owned right-of-ways that are adjacent to private property where the owner has determined those to be smoke-free. At Salem Health, we're keenly aware of the negative consequences that smoking brings, and therefore we made the important and very difficult business decision to create a tobacco-free campus. This restriction is intended to make a value statement about the health consequences of smoking. We do not allow smoking on our campus. However, on a daily basis, we witness people who take one step onto the city sidewalk that transects our campus, and they're able to smoke, in spite of the fact that they're right next to our restricted property. This effectively mutes our effort to create a place of healing and encourage a healthy environment. We hope that the City of Salem will pass this ordinance to support property owners and employers who want to make a statement that their property is free of the intrusion of the effects of smoking. The proposed ordinance will ensure that a property owner's effort to limit smoking will not be negated by continued smoking on sidewalks that adjoin their property. I encourage you to support the efforts that Salem Health and Willamette University are making to encourage a healthy and smoke-free environment by passing this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councilor Dickey.
Thanks. I have a couple questions. One, I'm going to ask you the same questions I asked Jim in terms of how do you intend to enforce this?
Well, we're already enforcing it on our campus because we do have people that don't.
But on the sidewalk?
Sure. Same way. So our employees are trained to approach and out of courtesy just inform that it is a tobacco-free campus and we ask that they go somewhere else. We encourage them. There's nicotine gum sold in all of our gift shops, and we encourage them to do that if they're needing a fix. And our security is able to be called, and they'll also approach people if they see them smoking.
Okay.
So help me feel a little bit better about, because you guys have Pringle Park right behind you,
Right.
and Bush Park is right across the street. Help me feel better about not thinking then there would be large groups of employees congregating in those parks where people are trying to recreate and smoke. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I can tell you right now there are employees that go to Pringle to smoke, and that's a problem that we continue to work with. And just like Willamette has opted not to have a smoking location on campus, we've done the same. We've opted to put those funds and resources into smoking cessation programs for our employees. So, I mean, I walk through there on a regular basis, and there's probably 2 to 3 employees there at any given time. I don't usually see folks over in Bush Park. I can't guarantee you that people aren't going to step into the street and do the same thing, just like you mentioned earlier. But I do think it sends a message, and I think that's really important that we're sending a message. We're a hospital, and yes, you're giving us the air, but it's our responsibility as a hospital to make sure that that air is clean and healthy for people that don't have a way to defend themselves against secondhand smoke.
Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Okay. Councilor Kessler.
So I am sitting at an unnamed restaurant in downtown Salem on the sidewalk, and so I don't smoke, but said party is not going to be allowed to smoke outside the restaurant on the sidewalk anymore. That's what this is going to do.
No, that's not correct, Councilor. This is only for public service land uses. So commercial, residential, and industrial properties are not eligible for this ordinance.
So people can still smoke right outside the restaurant when they sit outside?
That's correct. These are the land uses that are eligible to take advantage of this ordinance.
Because the state, you can't smoke on state property at all. I mean, anywhere. And I think it's 100 feet now from the state property. I know the people at our building have to smoke in the railroad right away. I mean, they're hardcore. I almost feel sorry for them, actually. But I'm remembering the situation with Nesca, where the people from the hospital would leave the state property and they would walk over to the sidewalks in front of people's houses, and it would just be cigarette butts, solid cigarette butts. Even though people put out cans, people would still throw their butts on the ground. So But this doesn't address the downtown thing at all, which is the thing that we hear about the most from people, is that I'm sitting outside and some dude next to me is breathing cigarette smoke over me and my kids while I'm sitting outside.
That's correct, Councilor. This is the ordinance in response to the motion that was made by Mayor Peterson.
Okay, I just need to understand that.
Councilor Bernard.
I asked the same question earlier, but I know I'm going to get a different, hopefully, answer. What about chewing tobacco?
This ordinance does not address chewing tobacco. It's just those items that are essentially smoked or vapored or misted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, public hearing is closed. Councilor Dickey.
I move staff recommendation.
Second.
Second by Bernards. Any discussion? Councilor Dickey.
Sure. I will be supporting the motion. I appreciate the testimony from Salem Health and Willamette University. I made a few notes as the conversation was going on. One thing, I don't know if you're all aware, Temecula Community College has been tobacco-free for a number of years. University of Oregon is tobacco-free. Oregon State University is tobacco-free, as well as other ones. So this, for the campus itself to go tobacco-free, this is not a new thing. This is something that there's a number of them that have been. To extend the enforcement to the right-of-way, that is a new thing. So this is something different than other campuses have done. But one of the things I did want to bring out, and I especially feel for Councilor Rogers, I almost forgot your name, Councilor Rogers, and the issue with the state hospital. There really wasn't a lot of legwork done ahead of time when the state hospital enacted their policy. The state said, hey, we're just going to do it, and they did it. Just like when the state, all the state buildings went smoke-free a couple years ago, it was, we're going to do it, and they just did it. Doing this legwork ahead of time can avoid a lot of problems down the road. And so I think even having this discussion can be very, very helpful and be able to anticipate things that might come up. I know that I'm sure Willamette and Salem Health will be evaluating how's it working, how's it going as you go through the process, and it's kind of a learning thing. And so I appreciate you being proactive. I'm very sympathetic to what Councilor Tessler brought up regarding like the downtown seating. You know, that's something we could look at down the road. I know that there's one, specifically of one city in Oregon, that their downtown association is working on their own, coming up with a smoke-free outdoor dining. It's a great thing if it comes from the businesses because they say, hey, we want this. I mean, this is certainly something where we have two businesses who came to us and said, hey, we want this. This wasn't initially started by us. So I will be supporting it. I think it'll be a great model and a great example. I appreciate all the discussion about it being a value statement because I think that's really, really important. That really says, you know, this is the kind of community we want, and it's not an easy decision to make, but I really appreciate your testimony.
Any further comments? Councilor Tessler.
I'm going to support this motion too, but you know, I got to say, Willamette University and other places like that, they're going to have work cut out for them because, you know, this is a cultural thing too. In Asian countries, smoking is huge. Everybody smokes. And I think that, you know, you have to make that transition, of course, when you live in another country. But, you know, I'm just thinking about when I was a kid, I mean, everybody smoked. They even smoked in the grocery store. You know, my parents smoked, my grandparents smoked, everybody smoked. So it's just such a change to see the total reversal of attitudes in our society towards smoking because everybody smoked, and now if you smoke, you're a pariah. I mean, people will actually get up. I mean, this is Oregon, but I mean, people will get up and ask you to leave if you're sitting at a table outside at a restaurant downtown saying it wasn't me, but somebody did it. I mean, they asked these people to leave. And you would not see that back east or in other places. So, I mean, I don't know. I'll support it, but I can understand that it is an addiction. It's a serious addiction. I mean, nicotine is a serious addiction. And I just hope that maybe it'll help people to quit. But I still kind of am sympathetic with Councilor Nanke's concerns with personal rights because that is a personal right. So, I don't know. I'll support it, but we'll see how it goes.
Councilor Clem.
Thank you, Councilor Bennett. I'll support it as well. And along my line of questioning, those public use spaces are generally maintained by folks, and they have a right to make sure that that the air and the sidewalk, the right-of-way, is as clean as the facility and/or the event that they're keeping, that they're responsible for. So, because it's right next to it and they maintain it, they can have the air.
Okay. Any further comments? Okay.
Would be nice.
What again? Never mind. I'm keeping it open, Brad. I'm keeping it open. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Rogers and Nanki. Motion passes. Okay.
And what thing that's unhealthy will disappear next further?
We'll go on to special orders of business. That is item 3.3B, pulled by Councilor Dickey. Councilor Dickey, do you have a motion?
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay.
Just let me get my...
Gonna keep us moving here. for a
Okay,
minute.
so we are on our consent.
We are on,
Okay,
yeah.
hold on 1 second. All right, I do have a motion. I may amend it if necessary. So I'm just going to throw something out here, and then I know we probably have some discussion on this. I move to direct staff to not prepare recommendations for amendments to the Salem Revised Code to accommodate the business model for transportation network companies.
Second.
Second by Clem. Councilor Dickey, do you want to explain your motion?
Yes.
I didn't hear it. Can you repeat it? I'm sorry, I didn't
Yes,
hear.
I move to direct staff to not prepare
not.
recommendations
Okay.
for amendments to the code. So, yeah, if I can address.
Yes.
And I've had some discussion about this today. I do have some questions about, well, one, I believe that the new ride-sharing services, I think they need to comply with our public safety regulations that we have within our vehicle for hire, our ordinance. I think that's very important. I mean, public safety is, the highest priority for this council. I think it's important. I did have questions, though, about if there were opportunities, if there's things, and I asked one of the people who testified about this, but if there's things in our code that might be precluding our currently complying vehicle for hire companies to be able to operate with current technology, new technology that might come up. I wasn't quite sure how to put this in the ordinance. I considered asking staff to go back and take a look at that and see if there was anything, but I also know that once you open up things, sometimes they could get changed in a way that might not be the direction this council wants to go. So I'm just going to throw it out there to say, these vehicle for hire or these new transportation networks, I think they're great. I think in terms of, providing some new alternative options for people, but I think they need to comply with the rules that we have. So,
Any other discussion? Questions for staff? Councilor Tessler?
I'm sorry, maybe I'm the last person on the earth that didn't hear about Uber since I came here. Maybe I'm just a Philistine or something, but I don't quite, is this like Craigslist? Like you get on and you say, I need a ride to Portland, and somebody says, I'll take you there for $10, or I don't understand how this works.
Mr. Gross.
Can you explain this to me? I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
I will try. I'm Glenn Gross. I'm the Community Development Director. And the way it works is you download an app on your mobile device. And then you can, once you have that and you're registered with the company, then you can go to that app and let them know where you want to go. They'll know where you are because of the GPS feature. They'll know how far it is from where you are to where you want to go, and then they will send a signal out or whatever to their drivers, and any driver that's on duty, that's taking rides, that's within the vicinity, will be assigned, the driver that's closest, or whatever, will be assigned to come pick you up, and you will be told the driver's name, a picture of the car, so that you'll know it's the right one when it pulls up, and they will in turn be given a description of, if they have a description of you, I suppose. So then you connect with the driver. He picks you up or she picks you up. You're given on the app, you're able to find out what the fare will be, and that's computed based upon, again, where you are and how far you want to go. There's no meter in the car. It's just right there on your app. You get there and you pay by credit card, again, through the app, and that's it.
Yes, Councilor Tessler.
First of all, this sounds like a serial killer's dream. Okay, I'm sorry, this just does. I mean, I would never. Why would you not just call a yellow cab? Or some cab company that you just look on your phone and it says, this is a cab company, and you come and pick them up and they have a meter and they have a license and it's not some creeper or something like, I mean, this is strange, this is odd. I guess this sounds to me like this is a bunch of unlicensed people who are just I mean, that's not fair to our licensed people. That's not fair at all. I mean, we charge these people money to have a license and they have to uphold the standards and pay all the things that they were talking about. What do these people do? Do these people have to do any of those things?
Yeah.
Are they just like freelance people?
They are considered independent contractors. They're not employees of the company. They are they're paid, of course, but not as a full-time employee. They're only paid while they're picking up rides, so just during that time. I am not here to try to defend Uber by any means, and so I'm not going to do that. I noticed that there's no one from the company in the audience. They were provided a copy of the staff report in advance of the meeting. We haven't heard from them. So they are what they are.
Sorry.
And this is my last one, I promise.
Okay.
I just don't. If they want to come in and they want to get a license and they want to go through our process that we have, I think that's perfectly fine, and they can have their application and they can Uber Ollie and yay. But I don't understand. I guess I don't understand why we would treat them differently than we would treat our official taxi cabs company who provide the same service.
Right, and just to be clear, our staff report actually gives you 3 alternatives. You don't have to choose any of those, but if you choose to do something, we've identified at least 3 alternatives. One is to look at the code to create a special provision just for this kind of a company. Another alternative is to do nothing, just leave it as it is. And then the third alternative would be to look at the code to see if we could make changes that would equally benefit both this new kind of company as well as the traditional cab companies. And I would tell you that it's been a long time since this vehicle for hire licensing chapter has been reviewed in any kind of detail. And there are probably changes we could make that would just update it for the benefit of the cab companies as well. And we might be able to do some things that would more accommodate a company like Uber. So that would be the third alternative, if you choose to do any of those.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
Councilor Bernards.
Oh, boy. I'm keeping in the back of my mind that last year we had an applicant come in for a license, and we interviewed, well, we didn't really talk to him that much, but he came in pleading his case to get his license. He was an offender, and he was turned down not only for a license to drive, but to run the company, both in hand. I needed some help clarifying on the motion, because what I like directing staff to go back and looking at the issue, looking at cars for hire. I don't think that Uber is going to go away. I don't see it going away. It's going to be challenging to a lot of communities. So I support, I think, the sentiment that I've heard both Councillor Tesser and Councillor Dickey talk about of maintaining the current system that we have, but I don't understand why you would deny the fact that we're going to be facing Uber at least, or an Uber-like company at some point in the future, and directing staff to take a look at that issue. Of the three options, and that's really, you answered my questions on that, I like the third one the best, one that mutually benefits both companies, but I really think that anybody comes in here should have a license and should be reviewed and should go through background checks, and everybody's playing on the same level.
We agree.
Councillor Clausen.
Thank you. I would like staff to see it, and as such, I'd like to make a substitute motion for staff recommendation on this one.
What'd you do?
Make a substitute motion for staff recommendation.
Did you pick one?
Take an option.
Three.
Pick option 3? Okay.
Substitute motion for staff recommendation.
Why don't we say what that is?
Yeah, I was just going to do that. I'll clarify. I'd substitute motion for staff recommendation, which in paraphrase is to go back and look at our regulations regarding vehicles for hire, and per staff recommendation option number 3, to look into amending the licensing standards of SRC Chapter 30 in a manner to equally work for both transportation network companies and traditional forms of vehicle for hire passenger transportation services without creating a separate set of regulations.
Do we have a second?
Rogers.
Rogers. Okay.
And if I may speak to that.
Yes, you can.
Thank you. I think, as Mr. Gross mentioned, it's been a while. I mean, I've been on council for 4 years. That's not big in terms of the city's history, but it's not something that's come up a whole lot for us. It would be interesting to have staff spend a little time. I'm not thinking this is going to be a crazy set amount of time we're asking for here. I think it's probably going to be a recommendation that's going to come back to council at some point in the future that's going to say, hey, here's kind of what we found. How do you want to move forward? I'm not thinking this is going to be a full revision, not a full proposed revision to the chapter. It's going to be more along the lines of, hey, here's some different options, and coming back to council. Would I be correct in that assumption?
Well, that would be our intent. There's no guarantee of these things once you get into it, but as we look at this, this would be more of a code maintenance issue as opposed to a major code initiative project. So it's not a UDC thing. It's more of a update Chapter 50 thing that we just got through doing a couple weeks ago.
And I would hope that it would be coming back as some sort of a report to council saying along the lines of, here are some different options we can do. If it's going to be a major revision, have council provide some feedback at that time.
Okay, Councillor Clem.
Yes, I've got a question to the maker, or to staff, and then a question for the maker of the motion, if I could. I'm concerned about every time there's a novel idea, we have a new requirement of staff to workload. When's the likelihood you're going to be able to get to this with the continuing work in the UDC and all the other workload issues? I'd like to support the motion, but there's got to be a reality check here of what all you're doing and how high a priority is this with all the other land use issues that we've got going. So can you give us a sense of, that you're...
Yeah, I do believe we have the capacity to take this on as I understand it at this point. Again, I think of this more as a code maintenance project, which we do all the time. That's what we do. We maintain the code and keep it up to date with changing technologies or changing issues. We have built into our work plan enough capacity to do some of that code revision work as an ongoing basis. And as of right now, I think this would fit into that. If that changes, I'll let the council know, though, for sure.
Yeah, and like I say, I'd support this if I understood that we were just really updating the code and that we were not changing the code for the benefit of one company, that we are in fact keeping a level playing field, one that's enforceable, as we were told by the existing cab companies, and that it would involve all those people. Is that the intent of your motion?
If I may respond to that, I think my motion was for staff recommendation, and staff recommendation specifically, I'm just going to read it because it says exactly what I think we're all looking for. Direct staff to review the city's vehicle for hire regulations with SRC Chapter 30 for possible amendment to address newly emerged transportation network companies who utilize, then it goes on. I think what I'm looking for and what this says is staff's going to look at it, get to take a big picture, 30,000-foot look at it, come back with a report and say, hey, look, it works, it doesn't work, here's some possible amendments, let council provide some direction back on what's going to prepare and what's going to move forward.
And if I could, just one more comment for council's understanding and really for the public's understanding of what staff's anticipating this project to be, and maybe even for Uber's understanding if they happen to be listening. We do not anticipate that we will be able to go in and do a code amendment that will completely satisfy Uber and what they want to do. Their business model, as we understand it, I don't think works for Salem. And the reason I say that is because our primary concern, as you know, is public safety. And their business model, when it comes to background checks, is that they do the background checks. They hire a third-party company, but they do the background checks. And the jurisdiction is supposed to just accept that on faith, basically. That's not going to work for us because we think we need to verify those background checks. And our conversations, the limited amount of conversations we've had with Uber to date, we have not been able to get a confirmation from them that we would be allowed to verify the background checks according to the way they want things to work out. So going into this, I see that we can maybe do some changes that will help facilitate it, but I want the council to understand we are not telling you that we can go in and do a code amendment that's going to satisfy Uber completely.
I agree with that. From our meetings, they don't want to have different business models in every community. They do not want to get a license. They don't want their drivers to have a license from a city. They don't want the community or the city to do a background check. So what I would understand this to be is if we can update our ordinance in a way that makes it possible for any company who wants to use, including the existing cab companies who want to use updated technology, that we would look at ways potentially if we need to change the ordinance to do that. But I don't think we're going to be able to find a way that includes any licensing or city requirement that would work for Uber as we understand the statements they've made to us.
I think it's worth a look.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Councilor Rogers.
I think the city manager kind of recapped it enough for me there. I just don't want to have, we've had issues with drivers in the past. And, I can think of more than one over the years. And here I don't want to license somebody out there or say it's okay, because as soon as there's an issue, where are they going to go? They're going to be right down here. And so if we have some rules, whether they break the rules, we're going to do something, but at least we have some kind of policy around it. And I think the update should be good because there should be some technology that the cab companies use. I don't know why our cab companies wouldn't use the same process and do them out of business, I mean, go on internet, get your yellow cab and go. So it doesn't look like it's rocket science to me, but I think we should have some coverage from the city, and I just support the motion.
My impression, too, is that their business model goes far beyond what we're discussing in terms of their way of metering or costing a ride, not metering, but costing rides, that there's a variety of additional issues here.
Yes.
You will be back to us very, very clearly, right, that as to how much time this is going to take. I think there's real concern that we have issues that really are confronting the community in land use and other areas, and whether or not this is going to take a lot of time, I think, is of real concern to the council.
Okay. What I would anticipate and I guess I'm asking for confirmation from the council, this is what you're anticipating. We will proceed with reviewing the code, and if we can put together some revisions that would equally benefit both types of companies, we would just go ahead and put that together and bring it forth. If we anticipate after some work on this that it's going to be a much larger project and take a lot longer and more staff than I anticipate right now, we would come back to the council and let you know about that and see if you wanted us to proceed anyway. Is that what you want, or do you want us to come back with a proposed schedule and timeline and so forth?
What do you want, Councilor Clausen? It's your motion. How many hours do you want them to spend on this before they come back and talk to us?
That's a good question. And to be totally honest, a lot of this is new to me. I mean, I think some of it is where my brain is going. When I read this, I was thinking, I'm kind of wanting a preliminary look at it from staff of, what is the scale and scope of this? I know I'm kind of a news junkie, and, I was hearing about New York going through this and San Francisco going through this and all these big cities, and they use it there. And you know what? That's mass transit. That is part of the mass transportation system for people. And I think we need to be able to have good, viable options that both protect the, the standard taxi cabs that we know of, and also provide people the opportunity to, because part of the appeal of Uber, is my understanding, is that I'm going to Portland. Can I have somebody come with me to help pay for it? And that's what some of the people do. I mean, some of the people aren't necessarily full-time Uber drivers, and it's just a different idea out there. So I guess I'm looking at a preliminary report back.
Councilor Klein.
Yes, and that's really kind of the word I was looking for. I think we understand preliminary report.
There you go.
If that's in your motion, I'm supporting.
Okay.
Preliminary report tells me it's probably less than 10 hours. You're going to look at what the risks are, and if it looks like it's a big, hairy project, we can make a decision about what council's priorities are at that time. But if you'll include the word preliminary in your second, we'll support it. I'll support the motion.
So be it.
Councilor Rogers, you okay with that? Councilor Dickey?
Yeah, I have. Well, I'll comment to Councilor Clausen. If you were to use Uber to get to Portland, you'd have to find a different way to get back because the city of Portland doesn't allow Uber. So you couldn't call Uber you couldn't use your app to get them. So just a heads up in case you were thinking about doing that.
It's a good new fact.
Yeah.
It's a good new fact, which is part of the reason of a preliminary report.
Yeah.
I
do have a question, though. I don't know if this is the time to bring it up, but I mean, this is an interesting thing. So at this point, we have Uber operating in our city, as I understood the staff report, and they don't have appropriate licensure or whatever. How are we enforcing our rules? What the heck are we doing to bring them into compliance, or are we still just trying to figure out what we're going to be doing?
Well, we've been monitoring the operation of Uber since we found out they were operating in Salem, and to our best information, they are not now charging fares. The company is subsidizing the drivers to provide rides for free to the public. And because of that, our read of the ordinance is that they're not in violation of the ordinance. If they start charging fares, they would be in violation, and if we had evidence that they were doing that, then we would be issuing citations.
Councilor Nanki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you find out if that's their modem operandi? If they go in, try to get a calling from the citizens so that when they come in, that there'll be a...
Yeah. As far as we know, and I can't say this is 100% fact, but as far as we know, Salem's the only place that they're doing that. The rides for free. They were recently cited in Eugene because they were charging a fare. They're not allowed to operate in Portland at all. And as far as I know, they're not operating there at all. They didn't start operating there in Portland. They started operating in Eugene and Salem about the same time without checking in, about getting a license. For whatever reason in Eugene, they started charging fares. In Salem, they still haven't, as far as we know. And that is something that we're monitoring.
Fascinating. Okay. Any further discussion? Councilor Clem.
If staff would, just related to this, if they're operating tomorrow and they're not complying with city codes, can we take appropriate enforcement action?
Yes, we will.
I get the sense that's not happening, so.
No, let me clarify. As far as we know, they have not charged a fare. So if the riders are not paying for the ride, they don't qualify as a vehicle for hire under our code. If they did charge a fare to the rider and they didn't have a license, and we had evidence of that, we would cite them.
Okay.
I still, all the more need for a report.
Just,
For the safety of the public.
okay, let's, if no one objects, let's vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're to information reports. Have you all reviewed them, and does anyone have anything they want to bring up? Councilor Dickey.
Yes, I wanted to discuss information report 7A regarding mobile food units, and I actually have a motion, and then we can, if that's all right, and we can just go from there. I know people probably have questions about that, but I'll just make a motion. I move staff to bring back suggested wording to amend the mobile food unit regulations to allow seating and to specifically permit mobile food units to operate in the right-of-way as part of a special event.
Second.
Second by Bernards.
What?
Tie.
The trio.
Go ahead. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, just briefly, those were the two issues that were specifically mentioned in the staff report. And I do appreciate this 4-month report. This is great because this gives us an opportunity to take a look at this before it's gotten way, down the road and a little bit harder to address. I appreciate Josh coming down and kind of sharing his experience. And so I'm hoping we can get some, especially the part about operating in the right of way, to just some clarity on that. That's been our policy. But I like some clarification within the code and to figure out what we can do to address the seating.
Mr. Gross, tell us about seating. What's going on?
Yes, I would like to. And actually, if I could have we have some pictures that we took the other day of Coffee in Motion so that you can see the situation there.
Yeah, with Councilor Tessman.
So the concern we have about Coffee in Motion and the occupancy of it by customers is one of safety. This is a picture of the stairs, I believe, and it's kind of hard to see, but it's a very narrow passageway. And then when you get into the vehicle itself, here we're checking it. These stairs do not conform with the building code for height or width. Pardon me? Well, the only standards we have is the building code. This is a tripping danger. This is why we have a building code, essentially, is to make sure that the public would be safe as they try to go up these stairs. And then here's a picture of our building official, who's here tonight, by the way. And as you can see, the ceiling is so low he can't even stand up straight. He is 6'2", but normally it's a 7-foot tall height. He's trying to measure the height here, and it's certainly less than 6'2".
It's size for an average human being like
Right.
myself.
And me, I fit in there just fine.
Go ahead. Here he's, this is the distance between two tables, and 13 inches. So as far as moving up and down the aisle, it would be difficult for the public. I think that's kind of it. We just wanted to convey to you that if you do decide to allow occupancy of a mobile food unit by the public, our first thought would be that they would, that they would have to meet some standards. The only standards we have that we know of are the building code standards. In this instance, it would be very difficult for the owner of this vehicle to make the changes that would be necessary to meet the building code. It's possible other food units could be accommodated to, meet the building code, but we didn't want to give any false hope. In this case, we think it's pretty doubtful.
Just so I understand, and maybe you can help me out, excuse me just for a second. You use the term occupancy, the motion says seating, and I'm not sure if there's a difference there. No.
I'm talking about seating. I'm sorry if I was confusing.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about seating, yeah.
Okay, so there's not some sort of permit to occupy as a restaurant required of this?
No, it's a
Okay.
question of whether or not the public would be allowed to go into the unit.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Clausen.
Thank you. That did have I was along those lines. When I think mobile food unit, I think seating, and I think seating outside. Do we allow seating outside around a mobile food unit, like a picnic
Yes.
bench or a picnic
Yes.
table?
Oh, sure, yes, yes.
What about a lean-to, a pop-up tent?
Yes, yes.
So I'm okay with the code as is if we let people sit outside. I mean, because that's kind of the appeal of a food unit to some extent, I think.
Let's be real clear on this, that people can sit outside on picnic tables or any other kind of seating that's provided by the owner. They can sit under a covered space adjacent. Is there some distance, or can you occupy whatever space you're being allowed, or how's that work?
We don't really have standards for that because we're not concerned about the public safety if they're outside. Perhaps I could have the building official come up and talk about what the building code intends and what his primary concerns about safety are.
But again, it's a mobile food cart, and we're talking about occupying it like a restaurant for seating. Do I understand that? I'm not sure that's what the motion was.
No,
so
I don't
want
think
to
so.
make sure we're all talking about the same thing.
So based on this discussion, my motion was to bring back suggested wording for possibilities to allow seating. But I had understood from reading the staff report that seating is not allowed at mobile food units. And I wasn't necessarily thinking inside. I mean, this case is one that's inside. But I was thinking that especially the covered, the tent or the canopy or whatever, and that's not the case?
That's not the case. We're only talking about seating inside the mobile food unit not being allowed.
Okay. No, can I
Yes, you can
change
fix that
my
motion.
change my motion? Okay. Sorry, I apologize. I did not understand. Okay. So my motion. So do you need to do anything other than just make a new motion?
Just go ahead.
Just withdraw.
Okay, I'll make a new motion. Then my motion would be, I move to direct staff to bring back, hang on. I move for staff to bring back clarification to the mobile food unit rules to allow them to operate in the right-of-way as part of a special event.
Second. Okay, what you're seconding is an amendment to the motion. Okay, is there any discussion on the amendment to the motion?
It's just the second. Amending by taking away?
We're gonna call this an amendment to get through this process right now. You want to debate the amendment? You're welcome to debate the procedure too, but let's just get this done.
To our vice parliamentarian, once a motion has been seconded, it's owned by the council, not by the maker, so you have to approve an amendment, but the council has to approve it.
Okay, I'm in the motion
Want to
to
debate
that.
the amendment? Do you want to discuss your amendment?
I don't necessarily, no, let's
Okay.
move that through.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. Now we're to the main motion, which is what we've got in front of us.
Amended.
Okay, you want to discuss the main motion?
Yeah, because seating inside of a mobile food unit is not traditional, but there are some vehicles that are meant to have people in them outside of, you know, a food service type element. So I'm of the mindset to where there is some opportunity for very specialized mobile food units to actually have the ability to have a patron inside.
The motion in front of us, though, what did you do your motion now? What is the?
Now it just talks about it right away.
That's what we're talking about. So the seating is gone now from the floor. Do you want to bring it back on?
Yeah, the seating's done.
Well, full seating inside of any of a number of them. And my question was, do I make a new amendment to actually bring back in a limited seating?
You can do a substitute motion if you want. Why don't you go ahead, if you want to.
Bring it up later.
The amended motion now just deals with right-of-way. She has amended her motion, and it now just deals with the right-of-way.
Well, there's lots of stuff, but I have less room than that to get out of a movie theater. if
Well,
it's
let's
full.
get a motion on the floor, or let's vote on this motion.
I'll hit staff up and figure out what potential options there are.
Okay, that's good.
One of the difficulties is it a building that falls under the building code, or is it a food cart? And so it would be good if we could talk to you separately
Yeah,
about
this can come.
Or is it a vehicle?
Yeah.
It's clear it's specific to a vehicle now.
A passenger vehicle.
Right, okay. Counselor Tessler?
Yeah, I would support maybe us caucusing with staff and talking about this a little more, because,
Okay.
I mean, I appreciate the building code person, and I've been in the structure. I fit just fine, but I'm not 6'2". So maybe it's just built for short people like me that can go there. But I think we need to talk about the shoe fitting, and maybe this is not the forum to do that. So let's talk with staff and get a better fit on this.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay.
I had one more
Was there
question.
anything else you guys want to?
I did have one
Counselor
question.
Clausen?
I think it's fast. About 7E, the Gilbert House bubble room, which was definitely my kid's favorite room at the Gilbert House.
Likewise.
Do we need to do anything for that? I didn't really understand the information report. Do we need to take action?
No, actually, the counselor.
If I can. Councilor Clausen, basically, it's just it's an information report to the council, letting you know that we're going to go ahead with approve their idea to move the bubble room from inside the house to a structure next door to the house. Apparently, they still need to do some fundraising before they can start that, but we're giving you a heads up that there's going to be a new structure in the Discovery Village.
Would it come back then for an approval at a later date, or is it just kind of like if we had issue with it, now's the time to talk about it?
The city manager is the chief administrator for the city, you're responsible for managing the property, so we don't technically, need council approval for you to do that, but
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure we didn't need to make an action or do anything. And I'm all for it. I mean, it was a great little drawing we had, and that would be a great addition back into the Gilbert House.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinances. Would you read the? And it's 81A we're on first.
Ordinance Bill Number 28-14 relating to naming an unnamed street in West Salem as Oakview Lane Northwest.
Counselor Clem.
Recommend we conduct first reading of staff recommendation.
Second by Menard.
Good one. Why read all that?
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Second reading.
Engrossed ordinance bill number 12-14 relating to property maintenance, amending Salem Revised Code Section 50, subsections 25, 35, 255, 260, 510, 520, 525, 545, 550, 605, 610, 620, 630, 640, 645, 710, 800, 805, 860, 865, 870, 875, and 905.
And 810.
Yeah, you missed that line.
I believe, was it 810, 880, and 900?
Right.
And 635.
Got them all? You ready? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Martin, do a count.
roll call.
Roll
Oh, I'm
call.
sorry.
That's okay.
Aye.
Counselor Bennett?
Aye.
Counselor Tessler? Aye. Counselor Nanki?
I have to recuse based on limited class and financial impact.
Counselor Clausen?
Aye.
Counselor Dickey?
Aye.
Counselor Rogers?
Aye.
Counselor Bednarz?
Aye.
Motion passes, or the ordinance passes. I don't have any more public comment. Without objection, we're adjourned.